how naive this country is. I mean, even our Defence Department. I was stunned today to read that more than 3,000 Chinese-made drones and other devices are owned by federal government agencies, even though the technology is linked to the dictatorship's army. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau, for instance, has Chinese drones. Our top science body, the CSIRO, has too, more than 1,500 of them, many with cameras and internet connectivity. Now, our Defence Department, yes, it did ground its own Chinese drones in May out of security concerns, but now finds that how strange, it has nearly twice as many of them as we first believed, 800. Joining me is Liberal Senator James Paterson, the opposition's Home Affairs spokesman, who ran a government-wide audit that uncovered these amazing numbers. James Paterson, thanks for your time. But before I get to the drones, does it concern you that the son of Donald Trump, the son of a former US president, still didn't have a visa to come speak here 6 weeks after applying and only got it after the tour today was cancelled?
Andrew, the character provisions of the Migration Act are intended to be used to protect Australians from dangerous people who, for example, have been previously convicted of serious crimes against individuals, violent crimes or drug trafficking. And they have an appropriate purpose within the Act to be used for that reason. The advocacy of Troy Bramson and others that it should be used in this instance, I think, did not stack up, because its purpose is not to exclude people on a political basis or an ideological basis. People who have a diverse range of political views are perfectly entitled to come to Australia as long as they intend to propagate them in a peaceful way. And I have not seen any evidence to the contrary about Mr Trump Jr.'s planned visit to Australia. I saw your comments before that the visa was issued today. Only the Department of Home Affairs can explain why it took as long as it did to consider it. It may be they were going through their normal processes, but that's up to them to justify.
Seriously, months and months, like a couple of months. Barack Obama, I think they'd just rush right through. Here's the golden lane for you, sir. Donald Trump Jr., well, you've got to wait. But to the Chinese-made drones the government agencies in the army have bought, how serious is this? I mean, could China really use our own drones to spy on us?
Well, in October last year, the US government decided that the Pentagon and the US military, with all of its power and all of its capability, could not safely operate these drones, and they decided to ban them. They also sanctioned them because they've been involved in the oppression of Uyghurs in Xinjiang and human rights abuses against them. So if they can't safely operate them, I doubt very much that the Australian Defence Force or the Australian Federal Police or the Australian Border Force could safely operate them either. And that's why I do welcome the fact that they have grounded their fleet, although I note that they only did so after I lodged questions on notice about them. They did not do them after the United States did so last year, and that is concerning. But what is even more concerning is that they are rife across the Federal Public Service. Andrew, as you said in your opening, more than 3,000 of these devices, and every single one of them poses a cybersecurity risk if they are internet connected or if they're connected to the internal networks of the departments. These are devices that by their very nature collect a lot of data, and sometimes, depending on where that is used or how it is accessed, that can be very sensitive data. And it's just not a risk that I think the Australian government should permit and should allow.
It's extraordinary that they bought that many that naively. But talking about things authoritarian, talking also about free speech, James, I was pleased to see your comments this week attacking the Albanese government's plans for its new bill to force internet platforms like Twitter and Facebook to censor posts that the government or its agencies claim as misinformation. Now, I was wondering when I read that why the Liberals hadn't actually said much until very recently about this outrageous idea. But then I found, wait a minute, it was actually the Morrison government's idea in the first place. How could the Liberals have backed an attack like this on free speech?
Well, Andrew, disinformation is a serious problem. There are authoritarian states right now who are trying to weaponise social media platforms against liberal democracies like Australia by dividing us internally, by pumping our political systems full of disinformation. They use it on Western headquartered social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook, but also authoritarian headquartered social media platforms like TikTok and WeChat. And we do have to deal with that problem. But my view is that censorship is not the way to deal with this problem. Transparency is the way to deal with this problem. If there are foreign governments who are creating coordinated, inauthentic accounts to try and game the algorithm of a social media platform, well, that should be made obvious to the users of that platform. If they are representing the interests of a foreign state, if they're acting for a foreign state media organisation, for example, well, then users of the platform deserve to know that information. That should be mandated that that is revealed to users. I don't think empowering or encouraging or enforcing social media platforms to engage in even more censorship than they already do is a good idea, because we know in just the last few years that things that were once regarded as misinformation have subsequently turned out to be credible. And the best example of that is the theory.
But that's the point. Yeah, well, that's the point, James. So again and again, you have to insist that the best weapon against bad speech is more speech, not censorship. Because, as you say, the definition of misinformation can be manipulated by government and can actually be flat out wrong. James Patterson, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it. After the break, you want proof of media bias? Well, the media pushing this voice on the public. I'll give you some example, a really startling example you can see with your own eyes after this. Check the standing ovation for Linda Burney at the National Press Club today. Newswatch coming up.
This program